Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's final session of today's Leader Talk, L&D's role in building skills-based organizations, sponsored by Accredible, Culture Partners, Info Pro Learning, the Regis Company, and Open Sesame. So again, I'm Liz Spate, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Again, before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact from our speaker and get the most out of today's program. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm going to ask everybody else to do the same. Please feel free to open that chat window and let me know where you're joining us today. I know it's been a long event, and I would love to know where you all are joining us from. I'm broadcasting live from sunny Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's just such a pleasure to have you here today. While you're doing so, feel free to use this chat window for any comments. As for questions, please submit those questions in the Q&A section of the panel. All of our questions will be addressed during this event, but of course, if we run out of time, no worries. The Open Sesame team will be reaching out, but please do not hesitate to plug those questions. And once the session ends, a brief survey will appear in your browser. Please take a moment to share your feedback on the session, speaker, topics, anything else you would like to share with us. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us. They'll include the link to the on-demand program for you to share with your team. Now, if this is your first event with us, we would love to welcome you. Training Industry exists to make connections among learning and development professionals, and we offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, our membership, and our podcast. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platform so we can continue the conversation. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our final speakers today. We have Lisa Weisner, who is an award-winning expert, author, keynote speaker, television personality, and global influencer in talent development, artificial intelligence, and automation and workplace culture. And then we have Paige Bergman, who is the director of curation at Open Sesame, where she leads the strategy, development, and evolution of the company's global curation practice. Ladies, take it away.
Amazing. Thank you, Liz. And thank you all for sticking with us. I know it's been a long morning, hopefully a wonderful morning for everyone. Appreciate Training Industry for bringing us on. And so excited to be here with Lisa Wisner, my amazing colleague and the leader of our talent and workplace culture portfolio. So Lisa, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this topic, y'all. It's going to be fun. This is going to be, please keep it interactive. We're chat people. We're going to be chatting, and we want y'all to be chatting. So bring the chat, bring the questions. We're here for it, and we are excited to dive in. Start.
Yes, Paige. So excited. Actually, I just wanted to mention, I feel like since this is the last session, I want people to feel like they can get the most out of this. So if there was something we're talking about that you feel you want to kind of tie back to another session, please put it in the chat so that we can help you connect the dots.
Absolutely. Please, please do. We are here and happy to talk about all things skills, learning, talent, AI. I'm sure everybody's heard a ton about that this morning already. But I want to start us off just by level setting so y'all have a good perspective of where Lisa and I are coming from in today's conversation. We both support the content and curation team at Open Sesame. And for those who are not familiar with Open Sesame, it is a comprehensive learning platform that is made up of world-class, expertly curated content, as well as tools to support the curation, customization, and creation of that content to ultimately support our customers in developing the world's most productive and admired workforces. Our vision is and has always been a world where everyone can easily access the training they need to advance their purpose, which is perfectly tied to the conversation that we're going to have today, all about advancing skills in the age of AI. I feel like saying the age of AI now is almost like kind of silly. It's just the world of AI. It's just the current world. It's like the age of AI implies that it will be like one day over. I think we're past that. So
Yeah.
skill strategy in today's world maybe is more appropriate. Lisa, let's
Yeah.
dive right in. What does that look like?
I know. I definitely want to dive right in. You know, when you were talking about the age of AI, it's like it's coming. No, it's here. We are in the age of it. We've probably been in the age of AI before we realized it. And so I just want to, just start off with thinking about where we are right now, right? Exactly what you said, Paige, right? Like I think back and I'm like, I don't know how many years ago it was that ChatGPT kicked off, right? Like more than 3 years ago. And it was one of those things that kind of like shifted the way we look at the world, right? So it's not AI to me now, it's not a disruption anymore, right? We know that change happens organizations. And I mean, one of my coworkers actually yesterday made a great quote, and it was Kyle Page. Kyle just talked about like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And he kind of mentioned that there was some sort of like a French way of saying that, and I was like, I'd never heard that before. But yes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that's kind of where we want to go with this, because we're talking about our capabilities that we've had, right? When we're thinking about our systems being stuck in maybe the last century, right? The way we did things is not necessarily how they need to be done now. We've upgraded not only technologies, but we should also upgrade the work that we're doing, right? Our customer experiences are different, right? How many of y'all, order things online now and they just show up at your door, right? No more do you have to get in a transportation device, unit, whatever, go to a store, buy things. You can literally just order, it comes to your front door. That has completely changed the way we do business. But it also changes how the businesses not only are hiring people, but also the job descriptions, right? We have opportunities here in our workplaces to just think about how are we organizing work. And when I think about the organization of work, I think about job titles. I think about how people are getting promoted, how people have tenure in organizations. Why are they staying at these organizations? And in the past, it had to do with what degree do you have? Do you qualify for this, right? And now I feel like those credentials, those years of experience, AI has sort of like taken that away, right? The world has completely changed. Our talent management systems have changed. And that brings me to this slide, which sometimes when I present this slide and I do it, with the audience, they usually chuckle about this slide. They usually laugh and say that, my job title is a lie. And some people take offense, right? They're like, oh my gosh, my job title isn't a lie. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that, your job title is not maybe wrong, right? But it's not complete. It's not telling your full story. Maybe it tells the story of where you've been, like what got you there, but what got you there is not going to take you to the next level, right? It's not showing your capabilities. It's not showing your potential. So just as an example, your job title may be like director of training or director of HR or whatever it is, right? Maybe you're a data analyst, right? But it's not telling that story of how you coach your team. It's not telling the story of how not only do you coach your team, but you're also a strategist, right? You're a change leader. You're experimenting with AI. Maybe you have an interest in project management. Maybe you're a community builder, right? So this job title may capture the thing, right? But it's not the dimension. It's not the full picture of who you are, what your capabilities are. You are a multi-dimensional human, right? One of my favorite speakers actually says that we are all unrepeatable miracles, right? All our lived experiences are so different. And that's what we bring into the workplace. And in this age of AI, that potential, all the experiences you've had that other people haven't had, that is your pedigree. That is what makes you valuable, not the degrees anymore. Because I'm sure you'll agree, some people may have had 5-year degrees and now they're feeling that pressure of, oh my gosh, I spent 5 years learning this. I'm an expert, but now AI is doing this in like a few seconds. What has just happened, right? So your job titles is not the truth of what's happening in your organization. So when you look at those job titles, I want you to think about this invisibility paradox. It's actually a problem, right? We have so much invisibility in our workforces. When we're thinking about the outcomes of what we're looking for, when we want to think about who's getting promoted, who do we see getting hired, who gets the performance reviews, right? It's all kind of invisible, right? It's stuck behind this situation of career paths, right? Like, okay, you're gonna move from this level to the next level, right? But that doesn't tell the full story of who is on the team and how they can close the gap to where you want to be, right? And so I want us to think about like just thinking about the invisibility of the skills we have, right? What skills do you actually have in your organization? Do you know that? Do you know about these hidden skills? And Paige, I know you're going to help us connect the dots even better about, why a skills suddenly at the center of our workforces today.
Absolutely. Why skills and why now is a big question. I'm going to extend this now to not just today. This now probably does go back 3 years. Let's go back to November of 2022 when ChatGPT is publicly launched to the world. All of a sudden, there is this massive shift in our abilities to deliver, design, and process massive data sets that historically would have been prohibitively difficult to do in the first place, and even more difficult to maintain. So there's this massive evolution in tech that's happened and is still happening and continues to happen more quickly than I can even wrap my head around, that is enabling us to do things with skills and skills data sets and taxonomies that traditionally L&D teams of 10 years ago could only dream of. And entire teams couldn't even do what a single person is capable of doing right now and like today in this day and age. Really exciting times and really exciting for people across this space that we're in. And on the next slide, you'll see that we can actually see this excitement reflected in the perceptions that are happening across our industry. So this is what you're seeing on the screen is the results from an annual survey that Donald Taylor puts out. It's a really, really awesome resource for anyone who hasn't seen it, would absolutely recommend taking a look. The Global Sentiment Survey has been happening for years now and captures essentially from L&D experts, L&D practitioners across the world, what their single thing that's asked them it's a very easy survey to take. And so it would also encourage you to take the survey. It asks what's going to be hot and trending in the next year. So what's going to be the hottest topic of 2026? And you can see this is the results from the last survey that went out. And we've got, shocking to no one, artificial intelligence tops the list. Of course, that's no surprise there. But what perhaps is more interesting, and that Donald calls out in the report, is this combination of number 2 and 3 for the hottest topics. We have reskilling and upskilling at 2, and then we have skills-based talent management at 3. And if you look at the cumulative share of those two items, it totals to around 20% of the share of all responses, which is just about neck and neck with AI. And I think to me, what that says is that these things, one, are deeply interrelated. All of them, like you can't really have one without the other. And two, are still critically important in the minds and in the perception of probably everyone in this virtual room and everyone across our space. So there's a reason we're talking about this today. It's because this is still a hot topic and one that is only becoming more actionable as a result of advances in technology that we're seeing today and into the future. So this is the perception, right? And what does the data tell us to validate that perception? We've got tons of different data out there that actually tells us kind of the why behind why people might be feeling this way when they are thinking what's going to be hot. We've got a seismic disruption in the skill sets or the evolution of the skill sets that we have today. 39% of existing skill sets will be outdated by the year 2030, which when I first read this, I'm like 2030, we got time. It's less than 4 years away, y'all. Like we'll be here before we know it. And almost half of the skill sets that exist today will be irrelevant in that time, according to the projections from the World Economic Forum. We've got 90% of CEOs don't think they have the workforce for an AI-powered business. And meanwhile, there's kind of this conflicting upper right corner here where 46% of leaders identify skills gaps as a barrier to AI adoption. So we have CEOs saying, my workforce isn't equipped for this. And our leaders are saying, there are skills gaps that are preventing my people from adopting AI. And then the saddest one of these boxes, only 1% of organizations are investing in workforce skills for AI. So we've got all of this kind of conflicting data that is creating this, I think that it's like a churning waters of different conflicting but supporting evidence for why this is such an important conversation to be having today. And so thinking about that 39% number of skill sets that are going to be outdated, look kind of scary. That's kind of like, oh gosh, Paige, like, am I going to be obsolete? What am I going to do? Well, I'm here to tell you that you as a person are not going to become obsolete. While that skill set may become obsolete, we actually have a simultaneous projection that 78 million net new jobs will be added to the global workforce as a result of AI, again, in that same time frame, the next four-ish years in that 2030 window. So we have this massive need and an urgent need, I'd argue. This is a now thing that we need to prepare for the world of 2030, where we have 78 million net new jobs. We've got 40% of our skill sets no longer relevant. You can bet that there will be brand new skill sets that we might not even be able to understand today that are going to be the fuel that powers these 78 million maybe more, or 78 million and growing new roles that evolve as a result of AI. So lots of stats. I just scared everyone out of their
Yeah.
minds, probably. Lisa, how do we solve
Yeah.
it? What do we do?
How do
What
we
does
get there?
everyone do?
Yeah. We
How
well,
do
we
we
definitely
get
have
there?
a solution for y'all, so I'm not gonna leave y'all hanging. We have an operating system we're gonna launch to y'all. But I kind of like what Paige was saying because the challenge is we have all these people that work for us now. What are we gonna do, right? Do we need to hire new people? What's going on, right? People are gonna have new jobs. The jobs are changing, but that's expected with change, right? Like people need to adapt, right? But can your teams adapt? I think that's the question you need to ask. Have you been creating a really strong learning culture where your teams are ready for the adaptation that needs to happen? Are they ready to learn? Are they ready to move things to the next level in a different way? It doesn't mean that their work changes. They're just working differently. And yesterday, Paige, I know we were chatting about how we're getting ready to onboard our AI curator, right? And I'm thinking, right, everyone's building all these AI agents, right? Are we thinking about, okay, do AI agents need to be managed? Is there a policy for that? When we make decisions based off of our AI agents, is there a thing for that? Who is managing that? Who has that job, right? So it doesn't take that long for you to think about how in your organizations, things are going to change so quickly. And so, what if the skills, right? What if the skills that you have in your organization today are the new operating system for your organization, not the job titles, not a framework, not the buzzwords that are happening, in social media right now, all the words that are happening. I hear the word work slop and I feel like it's making people slow down with AI. And it's like, no, you kind of need that work slop to get over that hump of people just kind of playing, right? We need to play. That's how you enable growth and possibility. And so before we even move forward in the chat, I want you all to let us know, right? Are you using AI right now at your organization? How are you thinking about using AI? Assuming that most of the people in this space are talent development professionals, please put in the chat a yes, yes. I see y'all are putting yes, but also tell us how you're using AI, right? Are you using it as an HR initiative, or is this something that's about capitalizing on human potential? Are you doing custom, learning curation on a personalized level? Are you taking it deep? Are you optimizing, which is kind of how we think about it? Yes. And I see Jamie says yes for everything. But I also have another question. So this is another question. How do you define skills at your organization? Because has been one of the challenges. Open Sesame serves thousands and thousands of customers all over the world. We have millions and millions of users in our systems, and the problem is every single one of those defines skills differently, right? And so I want to start off by asking, how do you define skills? What are skills? Are skills credentials? Are skills things that people need to do before they get that promotion? What are skills in your organization? And as you're typing that in the chat, I want to define what we consider skills here at Open Sesame, right? When we are saying skills, there's a lot of definition of skills, right? When we're saying skills, are we thinking about AI agentic skills, right? But I always go back to our foundation, right? The more things change, the more they stay the same. The Organization of Economic Cooperative and Development, right? The OECD, I'm sure you all know what that is if you're in L&D. They define skills simply as a skill being a learned ability to apply knowledge to get something done. So a skill is not something that you have as your job title. It's something that you apply, right? It's about performance. It's not just theory. So it's not performance assessments. It's not something that you do a performance assessment on and get a skill in, right? This is a proficiency measure. Can you apply that skill in the work that needs to be done, right? We need impact to lead the measures, right? For the skills performance. And one of the best ways that I love to explain this is through a cooking analogy. And so another audience participation moment here. Who likes to cook, right? How many of you like to cook? Or at least you know where the kitchen is, right? So put it in the chat. If you like to cook, put a yes, right? So perfect. I'm seeing thumbs up. I'm seeing Liz says love to cook, right? So, maybe the easiest way for me to explain this is through this ability, knowledge, and skills framework, right? So if you can chop vegetables, put a yes in the chat, right? You can chop vegetables, right? You can use a knife, right? That might be seen as a skill, right? But actually, it's not a skill. It's an ability. It's something that you're capable of doing, right? You have the capacity to cut vegetables, right? So who knows what salt is, right? What does salt do to food, right? So when you're thinking about putting salt in whatever you chopped up, right? That's not a skill either. Knowing what salt is, right? Doing an online course about the chemical makeup of salt and understanding all the salts is not a skill. That's actually knowledge, understanding what this thing of salt is and how it affects your cooking, right? Now, a skill, like we defined it, a skill is the ability to take abilities, right? The abilities you have and knowledge and put them together. So you have to take your experience of being able to chop vegetables and add salt, and then you need to know that maybe roast them at whatever 400 degrees and sprinkle salt on there. All of that, putting it together, that is what skills are. And when I think about understanding the differences, I think this is where a lot of organizations get hung up, is they don't understand that the difference might seem like it's a small thing. You may be thinking about it as trivial, but a lot of organizations are actually measuring for ability and knowledge and not realizing that a skill is actually how your team members are able to connect those dots. When we take it back to the, years ago, right, when people used to make decisions about hiring, it was about bringing your degree. What degree do you have, right? Do you have these capabilities, right? And now with AI, that is not the real truth anymore about whether somebody is able to move in your organization. I also want to lay a deeper foundation here for us, because when you're thinking about skills, you need to also understand that there are different skills families, right? So the World Economic Forum actually came up with these skills families, and you can use these within your organization, but I would even take a step back and think about like which ones do you want to use in your organization? Of course, we have our technical skills, right? We're talking about whether somebody can actually learn the skill of food safety, right? So when I think about food handling, I'm thinking, do they know how to keep food safe, right? So technical skills, human skills, we can think about cognitive skills, digital skills, foundational skills, right? And what's fascinating about this kind of skills family, whenever I first discovered it, is that all these skills are not just affecting one of the categories. Each of them affect each other, right? Technical skills are completely evolving today, right? We can't say that now, you technically know how to do that, right? When I think about forklift operating, I think about a company like Amazon. They probably have AIs that are doing the forklift lifting and grabbing the pallets up the warehouse, right? They probably don't need a human to do that anymore, right? We're thinking about digital skills evolving as well, right? Like, what are your teams actually learning today? I consider myself one of those people that's a learning hero, as I like to say, and I'm always in the mix trying to learn these new tools. But every time I learn something new, right? Because AI may be able to handle our routine work, but we have to do the heavy lift of understanding how we get that skill of learning how to use those tools. You have to get in the game, right? You have to do that work to learn those skills. So this actually leads us to the next point, which is this operating system. Now, Paige, I just want to bring you into this because when I think about skills, I think about it being an operating system, right? I mean, some people may be using Apple, right? So Mac OS, and then some people may be using their PCs, whatever lives on PC, Microsoft, whatever it is, or whatever they're using, right? So we're going to try to find the perfect operating system for our teams, right? How does that make you feel about, learning more about building an operating system that the teams can build, can have as a foundation for the work they're building?
No, I love it. Skills OS.
Yes.
I'm here for it. And I think that this is a really great framework to help us sort of dissect everything that's going on. And I would say like starting with the very first segment or the foundation, which is my favorite part, which is the systems that fuel our skill operating system. So if you look at this diagram here, we're kind of breaking down this skills OS into systems, culture, and enablement. And systems is at the top. Systems is kind of the starting point because it enables us to scale. It's the architecture of this entire thing. And that's the part that I am going to get into, starting with a visual that I love, which is this one. And Lisa alluded to this. This visual pretty perfectly describes exactly what we were hinting at the beginning of this presentation. Traditionally, what we can see when it comes to employee profiles, or what we have easily, quote unquote, easy-ish, been able to pull from our systems, whether it be your hiring records or your HRIS system. We can see job titles. We can see a person's degrees and certifications. We can see the results of their performance reviews, because that's all stuff that we discreetly capture and we put somewhere. And we've historically put it somewhere. But what I'm here to argue, and I think Lisa and I are both on the same page with this argument, is that it's actually what's underneath that is shifting in importance and becoming more and more critical to be able to capture skills and capabilities, project experience, learning agility, AI and digital fluency, leadership potential, all of these more intangible things that we maybe have not in the past been as good at keeping track of in a data-centric way and in a consistent way. We have these things, maybe like a manager here knows this about Mary on her team and says, "Oh yeah, Mary's got this skill," but we don't have the entire index and profile across our workforce, across our organizations. And that's the thing that's kind of fundamentally shifting in my experience and an experience working with customers of ours who are, I'd say, more advanced in or further along in this journey. We're starting to get to a point where we, as an organization, as learning and talent professionals, can look across our org and say, "Oh, Mary has these skills that are, of course, applicable to her role, but maybe she has skills even above and beyond her role, or maybe there's a gap that we identify that, hey, if she had these skills, she'd be able to perform at an even higher degree of proficiency." So these things, if we can start to think about the below the iceberg things in our skills strategy, then that enables us to get to the insights and intelligence that is going to fuel smart hiring decisions, smart promotion decisions, smart upskilling and moving and mobility decisions across the broader company. So it's really, I just love this as a way to kind of think about the things that do matter and matter increasingly more than ever before, that are those kind of below the iceberg things. So we're going to talk about, how do you start kind of approaching this? How do you start capturing some of that stuff? And I'm all for like the whole big picture, but I think that sometimes for me, the most useful way to think about things is in terms of a small micro example, because when you can always expand from there. And sometimes we get really theoretical in skills, building your entire skills taxonomy for your organization. It's very scary. It's a lot, and it's kind of a daunting task. So let's take just a small example. I'm going to use one that's familiar to Open Sesame to highlight the importance of the data and the taxonomy that we develop around skills. The example that I'll use is related to the actual content on Open Sesame. Same exact thing can apply to or any content, or in-house developed content or content from any provider out there. Same thing can apply to your job roles. And actually, there's a bridge between those that I'll get into in just a second. But I like to say that data is the unsung hero of a skills-based approach, because it is foundational. This is not new. This is not new with AI. It really is just a core tenet of understanding the entire database that you are working with. So for us, what that looks like on the course data metadata side is we've got a bunch of discrete learning objects, and each one has a huge list of associated data. So things like skills, proficiency levels, seat time, description, learning objectives, the list goes on and on. And you've got a bunch of this raw data, and it comes in many forms. Some partners of ours may be using AI to actually generate that metadata. Some may be building it out or writing it out as humans. Some may be doing a combination of the two. The important step, and one that I think often gets overlooked or maybe not emphasized to the proper degree, is this processing and cleaning. Here, we actually have a team of experts who that is their sole role, is this processing all of this disparate data that comes in to our system, processing it, standardizing it, cleaning it, ensuring that it fits in with the taxonomy that we have built. So we don't have, things, the Wild West of data that is then being fueled into this AI model. In our case, it would be some recommendation engine that maybe is surfacing the relevant results for content based on skills or based on different metadata tags. If that data if the data integrity isn't there, then the AI model isn't going to have anything to go off of or valuable things to go off of. And then the decisions and outcomes that we make based on that data are compromised. So poor data quality equals poor decisions, kind of garbage in, garbage out. Not a new thing, not a new concept, but I'd argue almost increasingly important in this AI era that we're living in. So don't don't forget at the very beginning of your process, because it often is the beginning, when you're putting your data, you're gathering your data and you're cleaning it up, that it feels maybe not as exciting as the latter two, the AI model and the decisions and outcomes, but it's critically important. So I'd say that this is kind of the highest level way to think about the my favorite hero, the data, in a skills-based approach. And I also, again, speaking of breaking things down into super like easy to understand micro examples, I wanted to just share an example of what this can look like on the flip side, on the kind of job roles and job architecture side of things. This is a very simple example. Obviously, this would be a very simple role. It has two competencies and four skills. So I don't know. It's not probably not a perfect life example unless you've got a very, very simple thing to do. But this is one way to visualize it. This is not, I wouldn't say like industry standard nesting. This is something that we sometimes see orgs do where you have competencies kind of on the higher level than skills. If you're not doing it that way, I've also seen orgs do, skills and or capabilities and skills. So it's not like there's a one standard practice, but define what it looks like for you and stick to that. That's the most important thing. Because whether you say roles are greater than competencies are greater than skills and they nest in this way, or you say roles are greater than skills and that's it, or you say roles are greater than capabilities are greater than competencies, like it can get really complex and we see that. But the most important thing is that you are being consistent across your company and across your systems, because that is where we sometimes see this there's friction in across systems. If you have, oh, in one place we say roles are greater than skills, in one place we say roles are greater than competencies, and competencies and skills are interrelated in different ways, that causes immediate issues when we're trying to integrate systems together and make this experience exist in a universal way across all platforms and across the entire employee experience. And speaking of the entire employee experience,
Mhm.
that's kind of the third thing in the systems that I want to call out here. Skills work when skills are everywhere. This is something that I think we are seeing more and more, and I love that we're seeing this more and more. Organizations aspiring to and succeeding at rolling out, skills-based approach across all of the systems, or as many of the systems that can, support it, that they can. So from your learning management system to your job descriptions, onboarding software, applicant tracking system, HRIS, you can, in many cases, these systems are going to have capabilities that enable us to say, oh, Mary is in our talent software, performance management software that we're using, we've identified that there's an opportunity for her to upskill in this area. Maybe that automatically triggers a course or a learning opportunity or a coaching session that Mary can use to upskill or reskill in a certain area. So the more places that this can exist and this experience can persist across the employee experience, the better. And I think that this again is kind of a aspirational today, but becoming more and more of a reality for organizations, and more of a focus for companies like ours that are building out systems designed to support employee upskilling, engagement, retention, reskilling, etc.
Yeah, Paige, I was just thinking through how you're talking about us as an example, Open Sesame as a company as an example. So, the important thing here is to recognize that, we do this work internally. We want Open Sesame to be, one of the most trusted and admired workforces in the world, right? But we do the same thing for our customers. So it's really important to recognize that not only are we doing the work and so learning from mistakes or opportunities that have come through, like we've tried to do, right? But we're giving you almost like the not only the best practices, but what we see as the next practices, what we're seeing from
Mhm.
global organizations. And one of the biggest mistakes I can just mention from this slide, sorry, Paige, I know you
No,
said a
no.
lot, but I also want to say that one of the biggest mistakes that I find when I'm visiting with customers is that they're treating the skills project as an L&D project. And I always have to
Mhm.
remind the L&D leaders that go find out from your leadership team, right? This isn't an L&D project. This is going to affect the entire organization. It's not just about talent management. This is literally about how are they going to recruit maybe their next CEO, right? How are they going to onboard their people? It's not just about making sure that people are filling the roles that you have based off of your job descriptions, which by the way, I just told you your job titles are a lie, which means your job descriptions probably aren't telling the full truth of what a person needs to succeed in that role. You have to think about not only internal mobility, but also what does succession planning look like, right? So skills have to be across your entire organization. But Paige, I'm going to go to the next one, which is culture, right? So this is the second part of this skills OS. When you think about this as an operating system, right? So we're thinking about how it works. The system, the gears have to be in place. You have to have clean data so that you're able to prompt correctly, right? A lot of people say, oh, the AI gave me wrong information. Well, maybe it didn't have all the information, right? Maybe didn't have your human judgment, but even beyond that, it didn't have all the data to make a better decision for you. But one of the most critical parts of this OS, of this operating system, is culture, right? And this is for me a lot of where organizations underestimate the challenge because culture is not about, what people are saying, how they're showing up. This is about whether people actually trust you, not only as a leader, but also the organization itself. Because this is a space where people are learning. And anytime people are in a space where they're learning something new, they need to feel safe to learn because learning happens by making mistakes, right? Making opportunities for those mistakes to happen, right? So that they can learn from them, right? People have to be able to take risks. People have to be able to grow and not feeling like there's surveillance watching everything they're doing, right? Otherwise, they're not going to be able to grow. They're not going to be vulnerable to be in a space where they're not trusting the work that needs to happen. And so I want you to think about this work as being a skills opportunity for you to build by design. Don't let it happen by accident, right? Because trust is not a feeling. It's something that you have to make a decision that you want to build a trusted environment in your workplaces. It needs to be part of the infrastructure. And especially now in this age of AI where we may not even trust the output of what AI is telling us, if we're going to understand the capabilities we need, people deserve to have the transparency to understand how their data is being used. They have to be able to also be able to understand privacy, right? Can they practice? Can they be able to make mistakes and not have them judged over it, right? And then who has access to that data, right? And then also when decisions are made based off of promotion and succession planning, right? People deserve fairness in understanding how maybe here at Open Sesame we do quarterly performance reviews, right? What if we put all that information into AI and told AI, tell us who should get a promotion? Well, people deserve fairness to understand how their QPR data is being used to move them forward in their organization, right? So this isn't just about compliance. This isn't just about leadership. This is about helping people understand that the system needs to be trusted, right? And I'm not even going to go into the details of ethics, right? And morality and all the things that have to do with the use of AI. That's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about creating a system where skills is the operating system for your sustainability. And for me, I'm excited about this because this is one of my favorite slides because it really tells you that everybody wins when you build a skills-based system in your organization. The managers win, the executives win, when the employees are going to win. And this is because everyone now has visibility, right? They have visibility into all the nuances of the work they do. And Paige may even tell you, right? I am the, talent and workplace culture portfolio lead, but there is so much other things I do that are like beyond what my job description is, but that's what gets me excited to come into work. And you have to be able to map that for your workers, right? You have to be able to map that for every single one of your team members because when you start to notice the skills that people have, you start to recognize maybe where the gaps are in your learning, right? For your team members, how you can build a stronger culture of learning so that people get to fill those gaps that you have, right? And so on the next slide, Paige is going to bring us home with the third part of our skills OS ecosystem, and it's all about enablement. Like, how do you get that going? How do you get those gears moving in the same direction? And I guess you could say, right, spinning super fast so we can move.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that, well, I said that or said earlier that systems was my favorite part, but maybe enablement's my favorite part, or maybe culture. I don't know. I love them. I like them all. I like the whole system, the whole operating system. But yes, enablement. I mean, let's put it to work, y'all. And then I'm going to show a little bit in this section what that looks like again, in the context of Open Sesame, but you can take anything that I'm saying and apply it to whatever systems you may be leveraging. So it's kind of a across the board approach that you all can roll out and start kind of thinking about today. Leveraging AI powered platforms, learning pathways, manager and employee support, and then real time activation. So let's go on to the next one. This is where we put it to work from theory to practice. And that starts with kind of some of these visuals of what the systems that we built and the culture that we have developed end up as in reality. So at Open Sesame, the way that we like to kind of look at it, and this is the bridge I talked about earlier, is that bridging the gap between the skills inventory that you have, so that's your job roles tied to skills and proficiency levels, and then the learning content. So again, this isn't just like, oh, this only works with Open Sesame content. This is everything. This is coaching opportunities, mentorship, content that you may have developed in-house, opportunities for learning and growing and skilling, lunch and learns. I mean, it can be any sort of content, but finding the ways to tie those two things together. So when I identify strategic thinking, or maybe in this example, because strategic thinking already has a check, let's say team management as an opportunity, a skill opportunity or a skill gap for a certain role, we have a variety of options to meet varying proficiency levels to help build that skill. And then there's platforms out there that actually are really, I think it's a super interesting space, the skill kind of assessment capability. That's something that I love as a part of this, and AI is making it so that this world of assessing skills, assessing capability levels, which is a real challenge because there is subjectivity to it, and you do want that human oversight, you do want that fairness. But with the three of those things, being able to assess, define, assess, and then support skilling, we can get to a really good place here. And what that and Lisa, if you go to the next one. And again, I'm going to zoom through a couple of these because I know we've got we could talk forever about this topic. But again, with Open Sesame, this is an example of what that can look like. Lots of systems have ways of cataloging different skills and searching and sorting and recommending based on those skills. So look as you're figuring out what this could look like, look for those sort of capabilities in the tool set that you're already using, or it doesn't need to be fancy. Spreadsheets are awesome. AI tools, if you have access to them, are awesome. There are ways to do what we're talking about in a very sort of low tech way, but that is still highly impactful. And again, I'll in the interest of time, we'll zoom through this one, but you're going to be looking for in a content solution, or what we look for in a content solution, skills mapped at the course level, which allows for smarter skills-based discovery and delivery into the systems you already use. The integration component is critical. And then my 4 pillars, if you only take like 4 things away, there's probably a zillion pillars that I could add, but the 4 that I want to just hammer home the importance on: 1, good, clean data we talked about, I harped on, I will continue to harp on always. Objective, measurable skill definitions, asterisk, with the ability or with the process in place for maintenance over time as skills evolve. Skills existing across systems, not just in your LMS. And then finally, something that I haven't talked about, but that is always mission critical: leadership and management buy-in. This has an always, because this is the way that you are going to get traction and bring your vision to life here. Your managers are the ones who are navigating skills, upskilling conversations, performance conversations. Get their buy-in, get the leadership buy-in in order to really drive this forward and get it to a place where the momentum builds and builds across the entire org.
Yes. When you were talking about good, clean data, I was going to bring back the cooking analogy, and it made me think of, if you have ingredients that are rotten or they're not good or whatever, you don't have the right ingredients to make the food you want to make, the recipe doesn't have the ingredients, you're not going to get the end result, right? So that's what made me think, like, how important is it for you to get the meal you want at the end? Then you have to have good, clean ingredients. But also, don't think about your kitchen being perfect, right? Paige talked about, like, if you're going to do a spreadsheet, do a spreadsheet. If you're going to go buy a system that does the work, do that, right? Because We know time and time again there's some Michelin star restaurants that are literal like street food little vendors, right, in remote regions, and they're winning Michelin stars. So you don't have to have the biggest kitchen, that's like, winning whatever. If you watch American Culinary Cup, you don't need a kitchen like that, right, with Padma. You could be actually on the street cooking food and win a Michelin star. So you just have to do the work, right? And so I want to just kind of close us out here. We are going to be sending you this deck. So we wanted to give you a resource, which is your 180-day roadmap. Don't boil the ocean, right? Start small. Start with one capability. We want you to also build a dashboard. So ask us questions on how you can build your skills dashboard so that you can move from what you're trying to do, right? You want to move to adaptability. That's kind of like the key word here. You want your teams to adapt. And then the number one question we wanted to leave you with was, what hidden skills can solve your biggest challenges? Ask that question to your executive team and have them answer that so that you know how to move forward in the direction of more. And so with that, we want to thank you so much for your time, everybody. I'm going to stop my share because I see Liz is back here with us.
I am, man. All these food references. I don't know about y'all, but I am hungry. But no, ladies, you have been amazing. Every time you guys speak, I'm just so inspired. So I hope the chat as well. I see there was a question like, I'm so disappointed I missed the first half. So you can watch the recording later. But ladies, I know we're at time. Is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience today before we say our goodbyes?
I would just say, Paige, I think for me, the most important thing here is just to think about your workforce in terms of reinforcing what you know already, right? We know that every organization is navigating AI differently, but these shifts are everyone's consideration. So don't make the mistake of treating this as I'll wait until, somebody tells me what
Mhm.
to do. You have to do the work now.
And you can start small. Don't be afraid to start small. That's some of my best advice that I tell myself. It feels big. It is big. There's like, if you want to tackle this whole thing, do all the things that we talked about. That's a lot to do, but you can always start with one thing and then build from there.
Love that. Perfect way to end today's event. Thank you so much, ladies. I really do appreciate you both. And I imagine your inbox will be blown up a little after this based on the comments. But for everyone, I do want to give just a big shout out to all of our dynamic speakers and sponsors today. We had Credible, Culture Partners, Info Pro Learning, the Regis Company, and Open Sesame. So again, thank you so much. Also, all of our sessions are pre-qualified for a credit hour by SHRM, HRCI, ISPI, and CPTM. So if you need those codes, please send an email to me or anybody on the team, and we will make sure you get those. If you are CPTM, though, it's a little different. You can put it in your tracker, and if you have any difficulties with that, please do not hesitate to reach out to our team. Additionally, TICE is right around the corner, the 16th and 18th of this month. I would love to meet you all here in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is honestly where you address your most pressing learning challenges, and you can re-energize your learning initiatives. So I really hope to see you there. So if you do, see me at the registration desk. I can't wait. And then gain that expertise to build effective leadership development programs that drive organizational success. So you can earn your leading leadership development certificate to begin developing better leaders and achieving the greater impact. But lastly, I do want to remind you that a survey will pop open another tab in your browser, and we would greatly welcome any feedback. Thank you again for all of joining us today. It has been a pleasure. Until next time, I am Liz. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will see you all very soon. Bye, everybody.